Uh-huh.
Like it is a painting that I've already made in my head, and now I'm telling all these people to recreate that what is in my head.
Hmm.
Firstly, it's such a privilege that you get to do that. And for me in past, that was the thing when I went and did research
Hmm.
in Kutch, came back to Bombay and I started writing. My first aha moment was I'm not making a film about them. I'm making a film about us.
Oh, nice.
Censor board.
Hmm.
You know, where the
Yeah.
committee told me आपको वो निकालना पड़ेगा. So I
Uh-huh.
said वो क्या? I said
Huh.
the breast,
Huh.
the shot of the breast. I
Huh.
said breast, and they all jumped back.
Hello, welcome to Where We Talk About Films, a podcast where we talk about films. My name is Vidar Joshi. I'm your host, and today's episode is with Leena Yadav. We talk about writing, directing, collaborating, and she also shares the journey of making the film she really wanted to make. I'm a little nervous, so let's just get into it. I've always heard this term and I've agreed to it that good art can change you, can move you. And when you walk out of a great film or a good film, you're not the same person you were when you were buying the ticket. And the same thing, that same huge change happened in me when I was watching Past. And when I finished the film, there was a conversation happening with Leena ma'am. There was a Q&A. And that just made me understand that a good story will always come from a really strong voice. And today I'm getting a chance to have a conversation with one of the very strong voices of Bollywood, of Hindi film industry, Leena ma'am. She's the writer director of films like Shabd, Parched, Rajma Chawal, Teen Patti, and I'm just really excited to have this conversation to understand her process. And how are you, ma'am? Thank you so much for joining us, first of all.
I'm very well, thank you.
Okay, so ma'am, how did your journey with films begin? Like initially, when did you start?
So I wish I had a story that said when I was 4 years old, I already knew I wanted to make films, but I don't. I
Okay.
kind of found my way here. So I was doing economics honors and I was supposed to do my MBA and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And just last minute, I had a change of heart, literally like months before my MBA entrance exams. And I said, you know what? I don't want to do an office job and I should be doing something else.
Okay.
So starting from there, it was literally like kind of finding my way. Enrolled for a course. I said, okay, something in the media. I don't know what.
Mm-hmm.
So enrolled for a course in Sapphire Social Communication Media in
Okay.
Bombay.
Mm-hmm.
Again, wanted to change city. I was studying my college in Delhi,
Uh-huh.
and it was too oppressive. So I was like, I've heard Bombay, may you can live alone as a woman and do your stuff.
Okay.
So then, chose to do this course here. Amazing, amazing course that was. It gave us an overview of, various like professions, journalism,
Uh-huh.
radio, television,
Mm-hmm.
film. So yeah, from there, so then when I trace back, I think basically I was a storyteller,
Uh-huh.
and my childhood was in the army, and we were in a new city and a new school every 2 years.
Okay.
And I think I broke through the barriers of making friends and stuff like that and
Uh-huh.
adjusting with just pure storytelling.
Okay.
I would pick up stories, and that's how I would make friends.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Were you always
That,
into films, watching films, cinebuff, cinephile?
yeah, by default actually. So
Acha.
army, wherever we were posted, they always had an army theater,
Uh-huh.
and we would see two films a week, one
Oh,
Hindi
nice.
and one English.
Uh-huh.
So we were like pretty up to date in that sense, and that
Okay.
was like a social event.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the army places, I mean, the cantonments I've stayed in had open air theaters, really
Uh-huh.
beautiful, beautiful theaters. So that whole thing was for me from childhood and experience,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Okay.
And my father has been a huge, huge fan of westerns,
Oh, okay.
so cowboy films and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So I saw Good, Bad, Ugly in my childhood, and
Oh,
like,
nice.
yeah,
So how impactful that was? Like, do you, when introspecting, do you think that that part of your life impacted the kind of films you're making right now? Not westerns, but in general.
No, but I realized how powerful and um, what a language cinema is. I guess
Mm-hmm.
just like subliminally it was
Uh-huh.
because there were so many associations with it and so much
Mhm.
learning from it,
Mhm.
that I don't think that reflects in my films, but I think the worldview that I have in my films comes from that life.
Okay. Uh-huh. And you mentioned this before that you started editing. You were working on the editing side of a film or a TV show, and that's where you learned like a lot of things about filmmaking. Now,
Yes.
editing is itself a very powerful tool. But in that process, how did you learn about screenwriting or directing or everything else as well?
Okay, so I have a very beautiful relationship with editing.
Mm-hmm.
Firstly, the thing is that when I went on a set for the first time, I was just like, what does the director do? Like,
Hmm.
really, really, what do they do? They
Okay.
can clearly, hire a team of amazing cinematographers,
Mm-hmm.
somebody amazing for sound, and just get all these great HODs, get the best talent.
Mm-hmm.
And then, other than saying action and cut, what do you bring to the table?
Okay.
So I just decided that I wanted to know one technical aspect completely of film.
Acha, okay.
So come
Uh-huh.
into direction from one perspective. Yeah. And then I said, editing is feels like a gateway where you've
Uh-huh.
done everything and this is where it's all going to come together.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
then, it goes into the world.
Hmm.
I said, okay, that seems like from the outside a
Mm-hmm.
very powerful tool.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I got into editing, and I learned editing from Raju Hirani.
Oh, okay. Uh-huh.
Yes. So yeah, I worked with him. I learned
Mm-hmm.
editing from him. Then I started editing on my own.
Okay.
And the thing is that for me, editing taught me direction firstly. Because it's where everybody's best comes together and you have to make the choices as an editor, right?
Yeah.
The director's best work, you have to
Uh-huh.
choose the cinematographer's best shot, you have to
Mm-hmm.
choose the actor's best take.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it's very,
Hmm.
essential.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I continue to learn a lot from editing. Now I don't edit my own films
Uh-huh.
because I realized, so editing basically becomes like your last draft. It's like writing your
Yeah.
last draft of the
Yeah.
script,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it does teach you about writing.
Hmm.
You could have corrected things there, but now you're correcting it
Mm-hmm.
here.
Mm-hmm.
So in past, I worked with an amazing editor called Kevin Tent,
Yeah.
and actually working with Kevin because we had lots of discussions
Mm-hmm.
about what stays and what doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a big deal, giving away
Yeah.
editing to somebody when you yourself can edit. Yeah. So, but after working with Kevin, after all the discussions, it always plays on my mind when I'm writing now.
Mm. Okay. Uh-huh.
Things that I learned from him in
Mm-hmm.
editing, which I apply in writing now.
Okay. And you edited Shabd, the first
Yeah.
film. So usually people say that the writers, director should not edit the film because they don't have the objectivity over the material. And so what was your approach when you were editing Shabd and how it has changed now? Like, what's your process of editing, going into the editing room with the editor or without an editor?
Um. So Shabd, yeah,
Hmm.
it was my first film,
Yeah.
and now also when I look back, I can't decide whether that was a bad decision or a good decision that I
Mm-hmm.
edited the film.
Mm-hmm.
It's a mix of both.
Okay.
But yes, what happened by the time because I had written it,
Hmm.
I had shot it, but luckily, I don't bring one personality into the other.
And how do you do
So
that?
like, it's crazy because I'm not attached to the written word when I'm shooting.
Oh,
I let
nice.
the magic there unfold.
Ah.
If a change happens and that's for the better, I don't say no, 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 no. We need to be that. For
Mm-hmm.
me, for me, the most interesting process is being on set
Okay.
because I feel that's where in all directions the dynamics have to fit. If they don't,
Ah.
then that's where it all goes wrong.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so I cut off from the writer. I do what needs to be done
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
directing. Maybe in Shabd I was not able to cut that off that much.
Mm-hmm.
And then coming in as an editor, maybe I was not able to demarcate. Now I am able to demarcate these things very clearly.
Okay.
But by the time I was editing, I had become so attached to everything,
Hmm.
that I had created from writing to
Mm-hmm.
shooting to that. If anybody said anything, I would feel like crying. I was so
Wow.
emotionally in it.
Ha ha ha.
So like you said, absolutely objectivity gone.
Mhm.
And yeah, so after that post Shab, I decided I'm never going to edit my own films,
Okay.
and I haven't ever.
Okay. After Shabd, you did Teen Pati, and
I
that's
use
sorry.
editing to shoot the film. Like I shoot the film like an editor.
Oh, okay. Can you elaborate more on that? You shoot film like an editor.
So I don't do what in film language is called coverage. कि
Ah,
यहाँ से भी
okay.
ले लो, यहाँ से
हाँ
भी ले
हाँ
लो,
हाँ
यहाँ
हाँ
से भी ले लो, top angle
हाँ
भी
हाँ.
ले लो, ये से भी ले लो. I shoot like I edit in my mind. I know how much I want. So that's one good for even the actor, especially when you're doing difficult
Yeah.
scenes.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm telling you to live through the whole thing from every angle. You know, I'll choreograph it in a way and I'll make it as easy as possible for you to
Yeah.
get the most in the minimum amount of takes.
Okay.
So and that a lot, even when I was shooting Pash with Russell Carpenter,
Yeah.
after the first 1 week, Russell was really upset with me. He said, Leena, you're not doing enough coverage. So I said, what do you mean? He said, you know, we're not going to come back to these locations because I'm sure at the edit you're going to say you need that and you needed this. I'm seeing now you're just like taking such few shots. And I said, no, but Russell, I already know. Why should I take 10 more shots? And in another week, we had another conversation and he says, oh, I get it now.
Okay.
You know, and I wish all the directors I worked with worked like that.
But ma'am, that confidence that you're sure that in your edit this will work, that comes with experience, or was that confidence like it was there in Shabd as well, then Teen Pati and
Oh, it was there in Shabd itself.
okay, nice.
Yeah.
So you just know how the final film is gonna look.
Yeah, I mean, I've also made mistakes and learned from them. It's not like I'm, you know, cocksure about everything. It's not. I think more than anything, it's more instinct. I don't know. I trust that while taking these decisions. I think my instincts are. And now, when we've gone digital, where there's no value for the amount of footage that you shoot, you know, in these times, sometimes, like even like in Rajma Chawal, I would okay a shot in one take, and everybody would say, like, you know, hello, you can't okay it in one take. At least you need one more for safety. I said, safety for what?
Oh,
you know, they said, what if it disappears from the disc or so, you know, something happens. I said, if it has to, won't like 15 days also disappear.
Yeah.
You know.
There's this quote by Werner Herzog where he says that young filmmakers come to me and they are like, we have shot 300 hours of footage, 400 hours of footage. And he says that it just sinks my heart that we are filmmakers, we are not garbage collectors. I think the approach is very similar. And but another thing you mentioned, Kevin Sir, Russell Sir, and your collaboration with people from not from India started with Teen Patti, Ben Kingsley, Kevin Sir, and then Russell Carpenter. So why did you
and
choose?
Also Teen Patti was edited by an amazing editor called Hughes Winborn.
Okay. So
who's done films like Help and Crash, even an for Crash.
Okay. So how did this overseas collaboration begin, and why did you decide to get someone from outside the India? Like, what were you looking for?
I was looking for another perspective. I've always believed that films are very, very universal.
Yeah.
So you've seen like even the most rooted films where culturally and everything you're so specific and different. If they're true to what they are, you know, they'll find a universal because it's about emotions. And if your emotions are there, then you know. But sometimes the language of speaking, which is like say an accent. So you're saying the same thing, but the way you're saying it is have you know, it's blocking out some people. You know, it's not as so the moment you get another perspective in which you think is the other end of the spectrum, you say the same thing that you're saying.
Okay.
That slight adjustment, it suddenly opens up, you know, where the film can go.
Yeah.
And I experienced that for real. Like just it's the same scene, the way I would have cut it, and the way Hughes or Kevin cut it. Just that slight shift in the grammar of telling it, and it made it more accessible.
Okay. So that was and how did these collaboration happen?
I mean, I dream of a day where I work with a crew which is from each and every HOD is from a different part of the world.
Mm-hmm.
and we are still making the same film.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that would be the most amazing collaboration possible
Yeah.
for me.
But ma'am, as a director, how do you communicate with people coming from different countries and make them understand the exact cultural reference you are giving in your films?
Okay, so this is like double-edged.
Mm-hmm.
One is that, yeah, it's an education. I mean, it's the best way to actually try and get into somebody else's shoes, right?
Hmm.
Like actually buy into something. So
Yeah.
while you're making a film, you buy into everything about
Hmm.
that film, right?
Hmm.
So it's the best way to dive in and learn and live
Hmm.
another kind of life, which is what Russell also experienced. I mean, when he came here, we didn't get him too much in advance from the shoot. Firstly, we
Okay.
couldn't afford it. And
Mm-hmm.
secondly, I genuinely didn't want him to get comfortable. I
Uh-huh.
wanted him to see it from a like, what is this eye?
Oh, okay.
You know,
Uh-huh.
where also the beauty came from because he saw so much beauty in that village. You know, he saw design in it
Yeah.
because Russell also is a very, very amazing artist,
Mm-hmm.
basically.
Mm-hmm.
So he saw so much design there, and then we had this discussion, and I said, I want to make a beautiful film. I know we are talking
Hmm.
about some darker things, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm celebrating these women. I'm not mourning these women.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
You know, and that
Mm-hmm.
has to be there completely in the
Hmm.
look. So actually, it's language and culture and all. You know, they're layers.
Hmm.
They can be removed. When you come to the heart of it,
Mm-hmm.
like when Kevin was editing Parched, obviously he was editing out of subtitle. I had made a really
Uh-huh.
long cut.
Okay.
Started working from that, but whenever he wanted to edit a scene, he would go back to the Russians.
Acha.
So it was amazing that after some time he took off the subtitles and he said, "I'm getting it."
Oh, nice. Uh-huh.
You know, and similarly Russell, I mean, sometimes I would like forget to just before the scene tell him the content exact thing of the
Mm-hmm.
scene, and but the way he was responding with his camera was he was getting it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I don't know, I think, and that's the beauty. Once I did a collaboration like that,
Mm-hmm.
I'm addicted to it now. I want more and more. I want
Mm-hmm.
to see the same thing from an eye that has never lived or imagined that kind of life.
Yeah.
I want, you
Mm-hmm.
know, because that gives you another definition into yourself.
Hmm.
So, you know, so the simple thing that we say that we know ourselves the best,
Hmm.
maybe not. It's nice to see you from somebody else's perspective,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, I would love to go and make a really culturally rooted film in another country and a language that I don't know.
Hmm.
I think there would be so much beauty in that. And I think it's possible. I do not believe that
Uh-huh.
you can only tell stories that you know.
Hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
You know, as long as you empathize and you actually surrender to the world you're getting into,
Mm-hmm.
I think you can tell that story anywhere.
Okay. Now, okay, speaking about stories from different culture where you were not from, the cultures you didn't know, past. Like, I cannot stop talking about that film. It's been a while since I watched that film, but to be very honest, it's very difficult for me to go into that film again because it just shakes me up. Like every scene, every frame, everything. How difficult was it? First of all, where does Parch come from within you? Where is that film coming from? Because I strongly feel that it's coming from a very deep space, very deep emotion about women. And so, can you elaborate on that?
Pash came from a deep space in at too many levels. One
Okay.
is, so Shabd and Teen Patti were not typical Bollywood kind of films,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but I ended up making it with a very big star cast, both of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So somewhere I felt the pressure of making an idea which may not have been that accessible. I had to make it more accessible.
Yeah. Hmm. Okay.
Okay. So and then whatever conflicts I had in the making of the
Hmm.
films finally the way the films were marketed, you know, as a love story, and which was right in what it was doing because
Hmm.
that's what the producer needs to do, try and make
Yeah.
the film sound accessible.
Uh-huh.
But I didn't feel it was right. And you know, after Timpati, I said maybe I should stop directing because it takes so much out of you.
Yeah.
And I'd never felt like oh, I got to do it the way I wanted to do it. Ultimately, so that's when I said I won't make films, and that's when my husband, who's a cinematographer, said, "There's no way you're going to stop making films. You now make the film that you want, and till the end, you will have a say in everything that happens to this film. That's my promise to you, and I'll produce this film." So that's how Asim turned producer. Gave me the most difficult promise because it was very difficult to finance. But when something needs to be told, it just creates a need to be told, And then some crazy, amazing angels came and helped us make that film. So, it came from that space. It came from a space. When I made my first film, I was asked so many questions only about being a woman filmmaker. Right? That woman filmmaker was really underlined. Like, as a woman, how do you feel working with an actor? I don't know how it should feel different otherwise, So how can I tell you as a woman how different it is? And I was just like, oh my God, they all want to put me in a box. And so they think, oh, a woman, now she should tell, sorry tales about women. And I was just like so upset with that I said, I'm never going to make films, a film about women. Because that's what they want me to do. I'm not going to give in to that. So I guess when I went to rock bottom in terms of I wanted to just give it up, I think I went to that true space that wanted to tell that and wanted to tell that with joy and because some of my most amazing relationships, who made me who I am, have been with women. And I don't see those kind of relationship in films. Where women are always pitted against each other. So I wanted to see people like us up on a screen with the conversations, and crazy, right? I'm saying people like us, but I made it in this village where. So that's why it's a myth, that it's the same stories. And for me in past, that was the thing. When I went and did research in Kutch, came back to Bombay and I started writing, my first aha moment was, I'm not making a film about them. I'm making a film about us.
Oh, nice.
I'm not sitting in a place of judgment because exactly the same things are happening around me.
Yeah, true.
They're just, kind of polished over. We've just learned to keep a facade of being politically correct. But what's happening inside is still dirty. Right? So, those are all the places that Parched came from. And there were a lot of things that upset me, the way sex is portrayed in films. I took out all those badasses in Parched.
Okay. So when you say that took out all of badasses and you were just being the artist you are, it must be difficult to make a film like that with people because finance and what were the difficulties you faced in producing
Don't get me started. We will be talking about that in the next 2 hours.
But, okay, just briefly.
Obviously, starting with nobody wanted to finance it. Then they wanted me to cast known actors for it, known actresses, because there was no male actor heading the thing, which was very upsetting for everyone.
Yeah.
And that is already not a viable project. So then at least ladkiyon mein, get us known people. And I didn't want any. And actually, Asim didn't even let that get to me. He actually did the promise to the T. He didn't even let that pressure come on me. He didn't want me to be bound by anything. Just cast anyone you want. So so it came from but what was your question? Sorry.
How difficult was it, like the producing difficulties?
It was very difficult. And imagine I'm making like the film that I wanted to make, and it's all and then there's no money, and like literally on set every day we didn't know whether we had money to pay for tomorrow. We didn't know whether we'll all be trapped in that hotel. But look at the talent that came in to tell that story. So there was also that burning need for it to be told. So I think it survived on that, and it survived really, really more than anybody else on one guy's belief, and that's Asim. Like, I don't know how he held it together. Imagine getting a Russell Carpenter for a film where we didn't have money to pay for a hotel.
Yeah.
Everything. It was just so magical. And Like literally in that film, I would say, I want this, and I got it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like even getting a Kevin 10 to be the editor was
Yeah.
like, would it be
Yeah.
possible? I don't know.
Ha, ha, ha.
So yeah, and it happened, and it happened so beautifully.
Hmm.
And that actually taught me, that film actually taught me so much at so many levels, and it's still teaching me a lot of things.
Okay.
But it was like therapy for me in
Ha, ha.
filmmaking. Like it felt like, oh, okay, so making a film can feel like this too. It was so beautiful, despite all the troubles.
Okay. And making the film you want to make, again, coming back to that, when you came back from Kutch, first, what was your research process over there? Because people tend to like restrict outsiders from getting into the community, usually. And so, what was that process like? How did you get into that? How did you get the information you wanted to get? And how difficult was it to put all the things you wanted to say and choosing the right things to say for the particular story?
So the whole thing actually started off with a conversation with Tanishta Chatterjee, where we were
Okay.
like, we want to work with each other. You're an actor, I'm a writer, director, editor, Asim is a cinematographer. So between us, let's cook up something and make something small and whatever.
Uh-huh.
And we started talking. And then she told me about conversations that she had with women in the village where she was shooting a film called Jal.
Yeah.
And especially the conversations about sex were so much more honest than I can imagine having with my friends in Bombay.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And I said, that's so interesting. So I said, let's make Sex in the Village and blow the pants of Sex in the City. So that's where actually Pash came from, just having honest conversations about it. So then me and Tanishta traveled in Kutch, where we met this most amazing man called Nayan Rana, who does theatre in lots of villages in Kutch.
Okay.
Extremely educated and amazing person, because of whom we had these conversations. He took us to villages where we spent days with women. The moment you start talking, and you're also talking about your life, honestly, and suddenly they would open up. There's so much less layering with them. We are so much more guarded in so many things. So we did all that research, came back, and like I told you, my aha moment of, it's not about them, it's about us.
Yeah.
And then it just so naturally flew. I mean, I think it's the easiest script I've written. I wrote it in like weeks without any stress. Then I sent it out to my friends across the world, just to understand, what does this read like to them. And they were all either filmmakers or very film literate people. And bizarrely, I didn't get back any script notes. I would just get messages from them saying, oh, I know a Bijli right here in Toronto. Oh, I know somebody like Lajju right here in Istanbul. And they would tell me their stories. And then once we started, so then we actually wrote the kind of Kutchi adaptation of Hindi. And the language we changed. Nayanji did that for us.
Okay.
We Kutchified the Hindi basically. So, and then I started wrecking villages. We wanted to get a real village in Kutch to shoot. And so we would go and tell them that, we want to integrate you also into the process if you come here for like 3 months. And you won't believe this, Vidar, but around 30-35 villages refused permission. Sometimes they would have given the permission and later on refused when I went, saying that, oh, are you telling me that more women like you will come here when the shoot happens? And I would say yes. They would say, no, looking at you, our women will get corrupt. So, and all those things kept coming back to the script. So, Shabd Pash was work in progress throughout, even through the making. We were still learning about our characters.
Okay.
So I would immediately come back and I rewrote my script and this is not the older generation. This was the younger generation who had been educated. The male younger generation who had been educated and who had been to the cities. They basically went into the cities and realized, oh my God, these women have become like this. And they went back and got even more regressive.
Okay. Yeah.
So exposure doesn't always open your eyes. It can sometimes shut you down too.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I brought into Gulab's character, that whole gang of boys who are actually so toxic. they've actually been more fortunate than the previous generation, but they're toxic
Yeah.
because they are just judging all the time.
Hmm.
So yeah, so finally we never shot in Kutch
Hmm.
because we never got permission to shoot
Okay.
there, and we
Uh-huh.
finally shot it in Kutch.
Okay. Uh-huh. And again, you mentioned Gulab and the gang of boys, and there are one thing which really struck with me was that the story is about four women, but every character in the film has the same amount of importance, same amount of depth, same amount of backstory, and the perform. You can see that in the performances and the way they are treated as characters. Like it's just about the characters. What was your process in creating the entire world around these four women as well?